In 2015, almost 10 years ago now, my partner Jamie and I made one of the most important decisions of our relationship. We moved to Dajingids, Haida Gwaii, what used to be called Queen Charlotte City of the Queen Charlotte Islands. It's a town of about 800 people on a remote archipelago in northern BC. We had decided to move there to the traditional territories of the Haida people because it's the place where reconciliation and self-government are most advanced. And we wanted to deepen our understanding of decolonization and our practices of solidarity. We fell in love with the place so much and with each other so much more by being there that after we'd been there for about 6 months, we decided to get married there. A few days before our wedding, a friend took us out on his boat to try to catch some fish that we could feed to our guests. So Haida Gwaii might be one of the only places in the world where you can just casually go fishing one evening and be likely to catch enough food for 60 people. I wanted to show this photo because I felt like I'd be doing a disservice to Jamie by not showing you that his fish story is indeed actually true. So he caught a 40-pound halibut, making my rather large spring salmon look pretty pitiful in comparison. So as we made our way back from fishing, we crossed several people who were pulling up their crab traps. And because they knew we were about to have a wedding, people offered us some of their crab. So we arrived back at the dock at around 11 o'clock at night, light still in the sky, with about 60 pounds of fish and about a dozen large Dungeness crabs. So after a day on the water, we were just spent, totally exhausted. Our friend made incredibly quick work of filleting the fish. But when Jamie and I got back to our apartment, we realized that we had both this incredible boon, but also a bit of a problem because we had a dozen live crabs that needed to be processed. And I just felt my heart sink knowing that we would be up for hours dealing with this the night before some of our closest friends started to arrive for the wedding. But then I realized they were coming on an early flight. And what better way to introduce them to Haida Gwaii than with a crab shucking party? So we put the crabs back in the cooler with some ice and some moist cloths, and we went to bed. So when our friends arrived, we were rested, and we sat around the next morning all together in another friend's large kitchen, boiling and shucking the crabs and then making crab cakes. As I looked around the table, I thought of Callahan's Law from the Callahan books by Spider Robinson. Shared pain is lessened, shared joy increased. Thus do we refute entropy. It wasn't just that we shared the burdensome task of processing the crabs, it was that by being together and just doing it together, we transformed it from a burden into a delight. So as you may know, across North America, what is sometimes called social capital, so the connections that we experience in various communities and in civil society organizations like churches, it's dramatically declined for generations now. So all the other crises that are playing out right now as part of the polycrisis, they are all playing out against this backdrop of a society in which loneliness and isolation are also a crisis unto themselves. So in 1985, the most likely response to a question about the number of confidants a person had was 3. By 2004, the most likely answer was 0. So as former UUA President Peter Morales notes, we have unwittingly created a culture that rips apart human ties outside the household. While I was on Haida Gwaii, I experienced what it was like to be in a culture that still maintains human ties outside of the household. And I also experienced how much easier that made it to ask for help. So I'm one of those people who doesn't really like asking for help, but I love being asked for help. I had to get over that aversion to asking for help pretty quickly because when we first moved there, We had planned to stay just a couple months in a furnished apartment. And when we decided to extend our stay, we moved to an apartment without furniture. So I had to find some very basic things like a mattress. Now, in this small town, you can't just go to the store and buy a mattress or order one online and have it delivered to your house. There's no mattress store on the tiny strip that has a grocery store, a hardware store, and a credit union. But I managed to furnish our apartment beautifully just through asking around. First amongst the friends that we had there, and then just literally asking people at the grocery store. I'm really not joking. I would just be in the checkout line and I would say to the clerk something like, "Hey, I need to find a mattress. Do you think anyone has an extra?" And if I said it loud enough, a few people in the line would probably also chime in. Before not too long, I had several offers of mattresses to use. The thing that was so striking to me was that in the culture of the island, this didn't feel like a weird thing to do, and nobody treated it like it was out of the ordinary. After a couple months there, everybody already knew who we were and they had a sense of our situation. So it was nothing like if I was at the Loblaws on Queen Street near our Toronto condo and I asked the person in line next to me, "Hey, do you know anyone with an extra mattress?" In this culture, making such a request would probably further isolate you. But living there and dodging Yeats, it connected you more. So, how do we recreate a culture that reflects and honors the reality of our interdependence? The first step is to commit to recognizing the hyper-individualism that is so normalized in our surrounding culture. We're like fish, and individualism is the water that we swim in. We're so accustomed to it that it's difficult to even notice it. And Unitarian Universalists are great at resisting many of the more toxic elements of our culture, but we aren't above individualism. To rebuild a society in which connection and care can really flourish, we need to remind ourselves to prioritize interdependence. So, my favorite piece of feedback that I've ever received on a service, ever, was someone who told me that part of it really didn't work for me, but I could see that other people were enjoying it. That's actually quite a remarkable piece of maturity in our hyper-individualistic culture to recognize that not everything is for us. Shared pains can be lessened and shared joys increased only when we can find it within ourselves to share them across a difference. Michael Meade, the mythologist and the storyteller, he describes how people who seem very hard on the outside are often that way because actually they're so soft on the inside. By hard on the outside, he means people who are very quick to anger, who are touchy and defensive, who just seem to be unfeeling, who are hard on the outside. On the inside, they truly feel so soft and raw and threatened that they try to keep what is inside hidden and controlled at all costs. We see this phenomenon playing out with conservative lawmakers all across North America who are attempting to pass hundreds of laws attacking LGBTQ rights. So the ACLU in the States is currently tracking 527 anti-LGBTQ bills in states across the US, bills that want to ban things like drag shows or gender-affirming care. As James Baldwin said with regards to racism, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. People become so hard on the outside because the pain and fear that they feel about anything that challenges them, anything that challenges the traditional patriarchal hierarchies, which are built on top of the gender binary, for example, is painful and scary. It challenges their fragile authority. It reminds them of the disavowed, denied parts of themselves, the parts that they don't like to admit are there. Michael Meade counsels us to try to become soft on the outside and hard on the inside instead. He means hard inside, not like a stone, but like a diamond, full of clarity. Having crystal clarity inside about what you value, what you need, who you are, what you believe, and the limits of your knowledge. Then you are able to be soft and pliable on the outside, compassionate, understanding, curious, appropriately vulnerable, present. You're able to connect with others from a place of strength. He describes this as the path of becoming elder, not just older. Having internal strength and clarity about your identity and your values, so you are soft and welcoming when other people are vulnerable, like that rabbit who knows how to listen. How can we cultivate that quality of presence and receptivity that welcomes needs and emotions in other people, that can connect and empathize even across difference? Do we sometimes, as creatures of an individualistic culture, feel some aversion to vulnerability in other people? Do we just want to rush through their expressions of vulnerability or recoil from what can feel like too much? I know that as much as I value vulnerability, I still have to remind myself to slow down and be present for it when I feel like maybe I don't have the time or the energy, especially when it's my young children who are feeling vulnerable. Consistently receiving vulnerability in present, loving, and compassionate ways takes spiritual work. It is a sacred discipline that we can all commit to practicing together, to getting better at over time. Cultivating that presence that makes us elders and future elders with honor for the interdependent web at the very center of our being. When we are hard on the inside and soft on the outside, we find that we can handle loss not by being shattered, but by being broken open. We accept the offers of soup and scarves and quilts and cards and phone calls and love that come with being part of Unitarian Universalist community. Here we are creating an island of care and connection in an increasingly isolating culture. This island is not nearly as remote from the rest of the world as Haida Gwaii is, but still it can be for us a refuge, where we create the kind of change that we would like to see in our broader society. We commit, as Unitarian Universalists, to sharing joys, sorrows, and pains, in the sacred hope that all who need this kind of love and connection will find it here.